Good afternoon, Excellencies, trustees, our distinguished speaker, Maysa Jalbout, ladies, gentlemen, faculty, students, and there are a few students, I'm happy to say, staff, alumni, and friends of our beloved university. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 152nd Founders Day of the American University of Beirut on this third day of December 2018, which happens to be the right day. According to our tradition, this is a day in which we honor the founders of our institution, from its small but visionary beginnings in 1866 all the way till today. We celebrate the generations of scholarship, transformative education, and service to communities that followed. We're also beginning a new tradition this year of holding an annual Giving Day on the same day as Founders Day, in order to re-energize new generations in the spirit of philanthropy, which was vital to the establishment and the growth of this university from the very beginning. But first, I have the honor to present prizes to 4 prize-winning student essayists who've written on the topic of how AUB can educate tomorrow's leaders today in our Founders Day student essay competition. We will then hear the first place essay, the winning entry, after which I'll have the special honor of introducing our wonderful and our inspiring speaker. Before I do, I'd like to commend and express our profound appreciation to the Founders Day Essay Selection Committee, chaired by Dr. David Landis of the Department of English and the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. Is David here? Okay, we should have invited him. Dr. Victor Araman from the Alayan School of Business. Dr. Maya Abu Zaid from the Department of Civil Engineering and the Maroon Sam'an Faculty of Engineering, and Dr. Greg Burris from the Department of Sociology, Anthropology, and Media Studies in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. So quickly, a warm round of applause for these 4 individuals. Third prize is awarded to Ms. Dima Mehdi, who's majoring in political sciences and public administration in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, where she's been placed on the Dean's Honors List for the 3 semesters she's been at AUB. Please come to the stage, Ms. Mehdi. Second prize is jointly awarded to Ms. Uba Ali from the Faculty of Arts and Sciences and to Claudette Igiraneza, am I pronouncing it correctly? Claudette, thank you, from the Faculty of Health Sciences, both the recipients of scholarship support from the MasterCard Foundation. If you could please both come to the stage. Okay, a little too warm for hats today. First prize is awarded to Zain Al-Abidin Gebouli, majoring in political studies and public administration in the Faculty of Arts and Sciences, and the recipient of scholarship support from the Middle East Partnership Initiative Tomorrow's Leaders Program for his essay on AUB, an institution of today's leaders. You're going to learn a little bit about Zain Al-Abidin, who is a political activist and a scholar from Algeria. Zain, why don't you come up and then we'll be happy to give you the stage. I'm going to invite Zain to deliver his speech today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Dr. Fadlo Khuri. I'm very, very honored and humbled to be here today, and I would like to thank AUB as an institution and also our program, the Middle East Partnership Initiative, headed by Dr. Hani Hassan, and also all those who supported me throughout this period. AUB, an institution of today's leaders. In 2015, I was awarded the Middle East Partnership Initiative Scholarship to pursue my higher education at the American University of Beirut. I was that young Algerian blogger and activist who wanted to make a change. I have always dreamt of taking part, along with other youth of my homeland, in leading my nation towards a prosperous future. AUB has offered me the opportunity to play that role and to express my controversial opinions without fear. However, a year later, I paid the price of my political stance. Even then, I owed AUB something more precious than freedom of expression. I owed AUB my survival. AUB did not give up on me. It didn't give up on my dreams. It had provided me and still does with a heaven where I could reconcile with myself and continue playing that role of a leader. Therefore, I believe my university could play a bigger role in the world. Today, in the midst of all the challenges facing the MENA region, AUB has the tremendous responsibility to form a generation of leaders who would set the basis of a change in the region and the world. The legacy of AUB inscribed within its mission statement, which is to serve the peoples of the Middle East and beyond through creating a safe environment where freedom of expression and thought is guaranteed, diversity is treasured, and respect for the other is cherished, is of utmost necessity today. Wherefore comes the huge role that AUB could play in this region. Such a role would be achieved through a process of 3 pillars: fostering an open dialogue, constituting a bridge between cultures, and breaking the financial barriers. Since its establishment in 1866, AUB has been the leading institution in this region, where people are granted their absolute right of freedom of expression and thought. This basic, yet fundamental right, represented one of the reasons why I chose AUB. In an era where limitations on freedom of expression are significantly threatening democratic rule around the world, and especially in this region, the defense of AUB for this inalienable right is more critical than ever before. It is crucial so that AUB plays this role of a leadership institution, that it keeps its full and unconditional defense of basic freedoms. Leaders need to be heard, and for that they need to speak. AUB must protect its students from all forms of censorship, because it is this peaceful dialogue that could resolve the furious conflicts. It is my belief that the moment we start finding excuses for censoring people, it is that moment that we yield to the oppressor, betray our principles, and threaten our region's future. AUB has always been the voice of the peoples of the Middle East. It was Howard Bliss who advocated for the freedom of the Syrian and Lebanese people at the Paris Conference in 1919. Beyond that, 19 AUB alumni participated in the San Francisco Conference that had established the United Nations. Therefore, AUB has always been there in the most decisive moments to provide an insightful perspective. Today, the region and the world are facing the most critical turning point since the fall of the Berlin Wall. During a time characterized by a dangerous polarization of the world, ongoing conflicts, and extreme divisions, only clairvoyance could rebuild the unsightly ruptured divisions and relations. AUB, being one of the youth's voices in the Middle East, has the rightful duty to provide a fresh vision and to restore the trust between this region and the world, mainly between the East and the West. This duty could only be fulfilled through giving the students the opportunity of a frank dialogue with policymakers. In that sense, social sciences and humanities should be given the highest importance through a reform, ensuring an increased value so that students are able to have a solid base that offers them the opportunity to discuss these pressing matters. Furthermore, students should have the chance to engage with policymakers and their societies, something that Essam Ferris Institute and the Center for Civic Engagement and Community Service are excelling at. Thus, these two entities shall be granted more continuous support and opportunities to further flourish. It is through these entities that AUB students will be the bridge linking the Middle East with the rest of the world. This support is the basis of forming a generation of leaders who speak for their land instead of having other people speaking in their name. Moreover, this process will only have its effect if AUB pursues a more inclusive policy, especially on the financial level. I come from a country where most of its population cannot afford a degree at AUB. I would personally not have been able to afford this university if I had not received the scholarship. The future of this region belongs to all its people, including those who, by virtue of their financial situation, cannot attend such a university. AUB has the chance of putting an end to the populist discourse, which treats diversity as an offense, through ensuring a more diversified environment. The work that AUB has been doing in granting more students full or partial financial aid is worth the energy and the cost, and must be strengthened through collaboration with state and non-state actors, namely ministries, foundations, and also other educational institutions. It is always worth investing in human capital, especially in those who come from a disadvantaged background. Opportunities to flourish should not be limited to only those who have the means. They should be granted to everyone, since these limitations are a collective barrier, as they deprive a whole society from the impact of individuals. We live in times full of challenges, but also full of opportunities. AUB could be the main source of agents of change because youth could either be the basis of positive change or the fuel of endless conflicts. This university has surely changed my life, and I wanted to change the life of others. It has not given up on me during my hardest moments, and I am certain it will not give up on this region. Thank you very much.
Some of you see me fumbling with my phone and you are wondering what trouble I'm going to cause next. Well, I'm going to cause some trouble. But it's a pleasure to have a co-conspirator in trouble today. Zain, thank you for those well-chosen words and your powerful argument. And thanks to all the entrants in the essay contest. I want to turn to our distinguished guest speaker, and then before I ask Maysa to come up, I'm going to make a small point that the students made beautifully again for me, and also made last week when I met with the MasterCard students. Again, it's a pleasure to introduce Maysa Jalbout. She's a recognized leader in the field of education and philanthropy who has spent more than 20 years building effective organizations, initiatives, and partnerships in Canada, the Middle East, and elsewhere in the Global South. And yes, looking at her, I realize you think that she started age 4. She's the founding CEO of the Abdallah Al-Ghurair Foundation for Education, which is a landmark philanthropic initiative with a budget of $1 billion and an ambitious goal of educating 15,000 young people within 10 years with excellence in the sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics being the focus. In 2016, AUB and the Al-Ghurair Foundation formed a partnership to support students from around the Arab world on full scholarships in the STEM subjects, and the scale and the scope of initiative, which is breathtaking, has already left an indelible mark on our university, for which we sincerely thank Ms. Jalbout and the entire Al-Ghurair Foundation. Maysa Jalbout was born in Beirut, the daughter of Palestinian refugees. She spent the first 16 years of her life here, studying at Al-Rawda High School in the southern suburbs of Beirut, before immigrating with her family to Ontario, Canada. She earned a bachelor's in sociology at McMaster's University in 1994 and a master's in distance education from Athabasca University in 2004. Impelled by her own culture and her own inheritance, Maysa has dedicated her career to helping disadvantaged children and youth around the world through education and employment programs. During the time she's attained innumerable awards, honors, and achievements, she's ranked as number 35 in the Forbes 100 Most Influential Women in the Middle East for 2018, and frankly, we believe she should be ranked much higher. And she's come fresh from her alma mater, where she was the recipient of the McMaster Distinguished Alumni Award at the full convocation. In the words of the US General George Catlett Marshall, who's the architect of post-war reconstruction efforts for Europe, from his famous 1947 Marshall Plan speech at Harvard, he said, "I need not tell you that the world situation is very serious." I'll repeat that. I need not tell you that the world situation is very serious. And yet, I'm struck by even more timeless words, which I looked up because I didn't want to mangle them again, from John Donne some 400 years before today, when he said, "No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as any manner of thy friends or of thine own were. Any man's death or any woman's death diminishes me, because I'm involved in mankind, and therefore never sent to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee." A week ago, today, I met with the MasterCard students who've already started to transform the university, as have the Al-Ghurair students, as have the MEPI and the USAID and all of our students. They are changing the university and the world for the better because they recognize that each of them is the part, a key part, of a greater whole, a whole that is diminished if any one of them is disadvantaged, if any of them does not have the opportunities of the others. And in their closing arguments, the students from MasterCard asked me to work harder to get jobs for our Palestinian students in Lebanon. They didn't ask for themselves. They asked for something they knew that I couldn't do easily. And we said, we're going to try. And I know Maysa is a full partner in this enterprise, as is Malak and Nimr. We need to do better for all of our students, not some of our students. And I'm thrilled that we have exactly the person today who we wanted to speak about a thorough, realistic, and attainable global vision of how the higher education community can be mobilized to tackle the challenges we face today. Through partnership, through the adoption of principles and values that we refuse to deny or compromise on in the service of the whole of humanity. Maysa, your story is a compelling one, and you honor us today with your presence. So we thank you for sharing your vision on this auspicious day in the AUB calendar. Finally now, the podium is yours. Thank you.
Fadlo said he was going to raise some trouble with what he said, so I hope I don't disappoint in that regard. Certainly the students did not. Before I begin, I wanted to just mention that he said that I might be the youngest person to have spoken on this day. He couldn't have known that the students of AUB were going to be the younger and definitely steal the show. So a round of applause again for all of you. President Khuri, Excellencies, esteemed faculty, students, and guests. I'm incredibly honored to be with you today, to share with you some of my thinking on the future of universities on the occasion of AUB's 152nd Founders Day. It's fitting that AUB has decided to combine Founders Day with Giving Day, given that the very act of establishing this university was its most philanthropic contribution. Having established AUB with a $100,000 fundraising campaign, Daniel Bliss seeded a culture of giving that became deeply embedded in the culture of this university. From the founder to its students, its alumni and community of supporters, AUB has both given and received some of the most generous amounts raised for education and research in our region. The late Maroon Sim'an's unprecedented donation from any one individual, and AUB's campaign for excellence, chaired by Dr. Kamal Shair and raised $170 million, are just two examples that have become synonymous with AUB's growing stature. It's hard to know whether when Daniel Bliss established AUB, he could have appreciated that his modest campaign would result in creating one of the most important institutions of the Arab region, renowned for the hope it symbolizes as much as the quality of its education. To me and my generation, who grew up in Lebanon at a time of hope deficit, AUB was indeed a rare beacon of hope. It represented the better version of a country and region in turmoil. It remained safe, inclusive, and resilient when these attributes were in short supply. The hope it gave inside and outside the university has paid off. AUB graduates have gone on to be some of the most successful graduates in the region. Its alumni are not only the most employable, but many have taken on leadership roles in government, business, academia, and the social sector. And some, like the late Zaha Hadid, became icons in their industries, global ambassadors for our region, and role models for all Arab youth. I have every faith that today's AUB students will be just as successful. This is why I'm so proud that the Abdallah Al-Ghurair Foundation for Education currently supports 87 scholars studying on full scholarship at AUB. The foundation's scholars represent some of the smartest and most socially conscious young people in Lebanon and the region. They appreciate the privilege of studying in elite regional university and carry the burden of proving that an investment in them will give not only them, but also their families and communities an opportunity at a brighter future. Most of all, they are preparing to play a role in tackling some of the greatest challenges of our time as future environmentalists, entrepreneurs, scientists, and social activists. They are preparing for a life of giving in service to humanity. Universities preparing young people for a life in service is, I believe, one of every university's most fundamental roles. Today, more than ever, we are in urgent need of universities to lead the charge in service to humanity. Universities need to rededicate themselves fully and without delay to thinking much more openly, creatively, and persistently about the challenges we are facing in local communities and across the planet. Unprecedented challenges require unprecedented solutions. Nothing less than a complete shift in the way universities engage in today's global challenges will be enough. The world is grappling with worsening and persistent challenges. There are over 68 million displaced persons and refugees across the globe, many of whom originate from this region. The Arab world is home to some of the deadliest armed conflicts. We have one of the greatest income gaps, where the richest 10% owns almost 70% of the wealth, while the poorest 50% just 10%. Our landscape is also suffering. Up to 1/5 of fertile land in the Middle East and North Africa is threatened by desertification. While we are dealing with these immediate issues, we are facing exponential technological developments that pose radical changes and threats to everything from our jobs, to our security, to our very own humanity. For us to be able to cope or adapt successfully, we need to deploy all our collective talents and resources much more quickly than we have ever done before. Universities shape the next generation and are at the epicenter of knowledge and research. Given the urgency, scale, and magnitude of the challenges we face today, universities are among the few institutions that can and are best positioned to address these challenges. Yet universities face tougher times than ever. They're under scrutiny for everything. They're expected to reform more quickly than the societies they operate in. Public funding for universities has gone down, so they have to chase private dollars. They're under pressure to raise tuition fees while spending less on their students and faculty. They must innovate, they must integrate technology, they must change or risk being obsolete. They must be local and global at once. They must defend the value of liberal arts education. They must respond to the changing demands of employers. They have to produce the perfect graduates, entrepreneurs, leaders, Nobel laureates, prize winners who will change the world. Yes, universities are expected to perform miracles. Despite how difficult it might be at this time, I believe, and I hope many of you share this view with me, that there has never been a more exciting time for universities to have a greater impact on the world. Show of hands if you believe this. Great. If you haven't raised your hand, I'll ask again at the end of my speech. Our world needs it. Today's students demand it, and advances in science and technology help make it possible. But to be clear, this is not a time to do better at what we are already doing. The higher education community, including universities, and the business and philanthropic entities that invest in higher education, have not always worked together with the urgency and clarity of purpose needed to serve humanity. Funding models have pushed universities into adopting a mentality of scarcity, competing for a narrow pool of resources rather than favoring a mentality of abundance that would incentivize them to stretch for new goals and create new opportunities. And too many private and philanthropic investments into universities have focused on implementing incremental initiatives rather than implementing system-wide changes that would yield the best outcomes. We see the ramifications of the current funding models manifest itself most clearly in the race to the top of rankings, the growing size of university endowments, and the increasingly elite selection processes. Rankings favor the wealthiest universities rather than those who have the greatest positive impact on the world. The endowments of 3 of the top universities in the world, Harvard, Yale, and the University of Texas, are equivalent to the combined GDP of the 46 poorest countries in the world. The highest ranking universities are revered for the students they keep out rather than who they take in. Going forward, we need to build new types of funding models and partnerships that reverse these counterproductive approaches. We ought to focus on partnerships that further the sense of urgency and clarity of purpose, the purpose of serving humanity, that incentivize a mentality of abundance, and that seek big system-wide impact approaches. It is my belief that when we deploy these approaches, these funding models, and these partnerships, and only when we do that will we be able to drive towards 3 of the most critical shifts needed in higher education. Shift number 1 is from investing in reputation and the financial security of universities to investing in solving some of the world's most critical challenges of our time. Marketing and fundraising alone will not guarantee a reputation of a university. Only a university that dedicates itself to solving some of the world's pressing challenges facing its community and its world will be assured that it will have the relevance and the support of its community, that it will attract top talent and philanthropic money and research funding. As the adage says, you are what you measure. While not perfect, current impact reports are important in quantifying university contributions, mostly in economic terms. For example, Stanford University claims that its enterprises generate $2.7 trillion in annual revenues and over 5 million jobs, roughly equivalent to the 10th largest economy in the world. Harvard claims that their living alumni have created over 146,000 for-profit and nonprofit ventures, over 20 million jobs and annual revenues of 3.9 trillion, greater than the gross domestic product of Germany, the world's 4th largest economy. But impact cannot be limited to jobs and revenue. Sometimes universities are best positioned to address the problems at their doorsteps. Perhaps no university knows that better than AUB. For decades, AUB's hospital and medical staff have been at the forefront of tending to the injured in Lebanon, regardless of sect, origin, or financial ability. And for that, I'd like you to give them a round of applause. To carry that kind of burden can only be understood by the unique position of a university like AUB, where urgent, immediate needs trump long-term headline and grabbing initiatives. And other universities make a niche for themselves working on the less visible challenges, like my own alma mater, McMaster University in Canada, which is quietly working on some of the most daunting health issues of our time. In a recent visit, I was struck by the extensive research they've done to understand and address learning difficulties in the classroom resulting from the rise in identified cases of autism, ADHD, and other special needs. CanChild's research and inclusive education model is open and available online and will soon offer toolkits and trainings for communities around the world. All universities can and must improve on their impact in the community. Universities like AUB and McMaster are models for what we need more of, humbly chipping away at inequity and building more inclusivity. New measurement frameworks, such as the Times Higher Education University Ranking, to measure university success in achieving the UN Sustainable Development Goals, are a welcome new development and elevate the public perception of the universities most committed to service to humanity. Overall, the existing models of building reputations through rankings and endowments are working, but in the favor of a few elite universities. Universities that want to join the ranks of excellence cannot and ideally would not choose to compete in this model as it stands. They are better served and can better serve by shifting to a strategy that focuses their partnerships, resources, and talent to solve real problems. This is what will guarantee their relevance, improve their reputation, and sustain their futures. Shift number 2. From modest efforts to increase inclusion in student bodies, to making education open for all who need it, regardless of status and financial ability. Scholarship programs like those offered by the Abdallah Al-Ghurair Foundation for Education, MasterCard Foundation, and the Gates Foundation are important and have had a marked impact on the lives of thousands of students in the US, Africa, and the Middle East. But they cannot be the answer alone. The number of young people who deserve a quality higher education far outweighs what any one foundation can offer. Even massive contributions to endowments will only reach a select, lucky few every year. In the meantime, inequality in access to education continues to grow. In the US, access to higher education has become one of the most divisive socioeconomic barriers of recent times. In the Arab world, youth from the highest economic backgrounds are 3 times more likely to go to university than those who come from the lowest economic background. And the young people who are refugees around the world, only 1% of them can even dream to continue on to higher education. Please don't misunderstand me. I believe that every life changed by a university scholarship or financial aid is a life we should celebrate. Scholarships that target students' merit and financial need are precious magnets that shine the light on gems like Al-Ghurair scholar Rasha Al-Khatib from Jordan. Is Rasha here? And I want to emphasize that she's one shining example. There are many, and many of whom are here in the room today. Before Rasha became a scholar, Rasha was already a social entrepreneur who started a skills development nonprofit called Mindshift. She was Jordan's national chess champion, had worked in several companies, organized national tech competitions, and participated in Girls in Tech Exchange program, which took her to the US and helped her meet some of the top companies in the world like Facebook and Yahoo, and all before she was 18. But for every Rasha, there are thousands more who do not get the chance at continuing their education. And for this to change, universities must refocus their efforts from raising funds for a select few to opening their education to everyone who needs it. With the advancement in technologies and improvement in online learning, arguments needing to maintain small class sizes or limited campus sizes no longer hold. The universities most committed to service to humanity will also be the most inclusive. And make no mistake, this is not a privilege of top universities who can afford it. The University Innovation Alliance in the United States is made up of universities as diverse as Georgia State to Purdue. The 11 universities came together with a common goal of innovating within their universities to significantly increase access to education. Today, only 27% of low-income students complete their bachelor's degree in the US. Together, this coalition has set an achievable goal of raising that number to 30% by 2022. One of the University Innovation Alliance members, Arizona State University, is a partner of the Abdallah Al-Ghurair Foundation for Education and offers 500 online master's degrees to Arab youth in 28 specializations. And AUB is one of only 2 partners to date, along with the American University of Cairo, in the online learning capacity development project funded by the Abdallah Al-Ghurair Foundation for Education and implemented by MIT. These types of innovative initiatives are really only the beginning. Universities like AUB need to lead the charge in the region if the region is going to scale up access to higher education. Initiatives to increase inclusivity on university campuses can only result in positive outcomes. But to truly have an impact, universities must adopt new approaches that make higher education available to everyone. Shift number 3. From offering skills and tools for rapid changes in today's workforce, to preserving and reinforcing our ethics, our values, amidst radical and inconceivable impacts of technological change. This is without a doubt the most challenging and uncertain shift for universities, for us all. Universities are already bearing the brunt of the pressure to prepare graduates who are instantly employable, even as changes in the world of work accelerate at ever greater rates. A shift by universities to help make education radically more accessible will help and will also magnify the change in who we consider to be students. Early impact studies of MOOCs on platforms such as edX and Coursera show that short online courses and credentials have the largest take-up among adults who are educated and are already in the workplace. They enroll in popular courses like coding, data analytics, and supply chain management as a way to get ahead in their careers in anticipation of career changes. This development has also spurred some universities like Northeastern University to start thinking about university education as a membership-based, where students will no longer study for 4 or 5 years, but rather come in and out of university on a regular basis. Other universities are offering their students the chance to learn and work at the same time so that the transition from school to work is seamless. Waterloo University, another partner of the Abdallah Al-Ghurair Foundation for Education, is one of the world's largest and most successful providers of co-op education. Just over 96% of its co-op graduates obtain a full-time job within 6 months of graduating. But co-op education, lifelong education, and even MOOCs all still fall into the category of incremental changes. As surprising as that may seem, they are simply not enough. We live in a time that not only already experiencing tremendous technological change, we are at the doorstep of an era of inconceivable technological capabilities. The rapid progress in the ability of humans to manipulate our DNA, to create parallel worlds and very real simulations with augmented reality and virtual reality, and to create artificial intelligence are just 3 areas of stunning pending breakthroughs and profound challenges. These trends could entirely reshape the concepts of work, of purpose in our lives, and the evolution of humans and life on Earth and beyond, while also posing immense questions and threats to humanity. Under such circumstances, the answer from universities cannot only be in teaching more coding or artificial intelligence and other subjects. The answer cannot only be to try to respond even more rapidly and increasingly frantically to changes in the workforce, even as the pace of risk accelerating beyond our ability to respond. Indeed, the answers are not clear at all. And that is why universities will be called upon as some of our most able existing institutions to help humanity steer our way through as yet inconceivable challenges to society. This may sound like the first shift I emphasize for universities, the shift to focus on addressing the world's biggest challenges through a renewed emphasis on service to humanity. But it is more than that. It's about preserving, revitalizing, and guiding our humanity. It's about thinking deeply about what makes us human, our most cherished human traits, ethics, and values. It's about thinking how we want to evolve as societies and as humanity. As institutions that have helped steer society in the past, we will need leadership from universities now more than ever. This will be far, far more important than any short-term fixes universities can make, such as trying to keep up with the workforce skills amidst accelerating change. What better resource do we currently have than universities to think through and to embed deep consideration for our humanity, our ethics and values to guide us through these times? President Khuri, Excellencies, esteemed faculty and guests, students, I truly believe this is a very exciting time for universities. They have the chance to have a greater impact on the world. We need universities to focus on solving some of the most critical challenges of our time, to make education open for all, and preserve and continue to shape and enhance our humanity as we navigate radical technological changes. I know the shifts I'm urging are far from easy. It will take an urgency and clarity of purpose, partnerships that incentivize a mentality of abundance, and strong moral leadership to drive big impact, system-wide changes. I cannot think of a university in the Arab region better suited to take up these shifts than AUB. Just as AUB was a beacon of hope during my childhood in Lebanon, its leadership in the service of humanity is needed today more than ever.